Today, you'll meet wife, daughter, and friend Clare Stewart. She also happens to be the Mayor of Noosa. Hers is a story and a lesson in courage and resilience. Given the last few years have been challenging for so many, we felt Clare's story was timely. What a privilege to chat with Clare. Please enjoy today's episode. Clare, your story is, I guess, the perfect example of that. We're talking back in 2000, the year 2000, when you're off for your usual run in the morning and stepping out onto a pedestrian crossing, struck by a garbage truck, and then trapped under that truck for 37 minutes, being completely conscious the whole time. I guess it's an understatement to say that your life changed that day.
It did. Look, it did, Shelley. And I often say when I talk about it, that particular morning, I'm a creature of habit and a creature of routine. So I had been living in Sydney. I moved here in the January. I just finished, I was doing my last subject of law by correspondence, and I had got a job at KPMG. So I'd started at Dayton College of Law, started at KPMG in the May, and was living in Bondi Beach, just turned 23, thinking, this is the world's my oyster, and the next step is going from Sydney to London, and that was the plan. And I was very big on fitness. Played tennis for Queensland as a junior, ran 10K every morning. And this particular morning, I'd run the same route, every day for the last sort of 9 months I'd been living in Sydney, and I washed my face, looked out the window and thought, should I or shouldn't I go for a jog? And it's that split second that changes your life. That one decision of, yes, I will go. It was a Friday morning, and I was thinking, well, drinks after work, won't have time to do any exercise tonight. I'll go for a run. And that one decision changed my life. And when I say this, when I washed my face and looked at myself in the mirror that morning, I looked just a little bit longer. And I don't know why, but the same person who looked back then doesn't look at themselves in the mirror this morning because of how much my life has changed. In one way, my life that I knew it for 23 years died on that morning, and another life presented itself. I was incredibly lucky to have survived it. So it was a huge, at just turning 23, undergoing everything I did. And as you said, it was on a pedestrian crossing, looked both ways, same route, had done it every day.
Yeah.
But a garbage truck rounded the corner. By the driver's own admission, he failed to see me, and so he kept going, but he stopped. But the truck stopped on top of me, and so both of my legs bore the full weight of the garbage truck for the 37 minutes that I was trapped.
Look, I really appreciate you explaining the whole day to us again. I'm sure, going through it every time that you're interviewed or asked the same question, I don't think it becomes any more mundane of a story. I'm sure there's a lot of emotions that come up for you every time that you do relive that moment, really. So in hospital for 6 months, 37 operations later.
Correct. Yeah.
And now we're 23 years on. You're not only a barrister, an author, but you're also the mayor of Noosa, and can I say politely as possible, one tough mother.
Oh, thank you. Yes, it's so interesting when I look back. I mean, it was 18th of August 2000, and that day, it will always be etched in my memory, Shelley. And I still remember the happenings of that morning. I still remember everything. I still remember that they put towels. The ambulance wasn't far. I was lucky. They gave me enough morphine at the scene to kill a horse. I was still screaming for more. But 6 months in hospital, 37 ops on my legs. So lucky to keep them when, there was my mother left her home, her state, her job. She was living in Toowoomba with my dad, my parents there. She moved her whole self down to Sydney to sit by my bedside for 6 months. I was in hospital, and then care for me for the 2 or 3 years afterwards. So it was the rehabilitation of and the life lessons, that you learn at that time. And at 23, you're pretty green, and you have that invincibility, nothing can touch me, and now I think, now I know that no one's invincible, and it won't happen to me, or it won't happen to us. That's not true, because I'm living proof that it does. But as you said, huge amount of water's gone under the bridge since that time, and I'm so very fortunate to find myself to be a wife, to be a mother, when there was so much talk that, not only would I lose my legs, I'd lose my life. All of and people said to me, did you ever think about having children? I'm like, I'm too busy trying to learn how to walk one foot in front of the other,
Yeah.
to think about. I'm too busy to learn how to, toilet out of bed. That's true. Too busy to, go through everything I was going through to even focus on children.
Mm.
So I'm incredibly fortunate to have, had my huge support from my parents, friends, close friends, who were still all in Brisbane at the time. So they used to come down to Sydney. And then, married, 3 children, and in the very, very privileged position of being the mayor of Noosa, which I'm very, feel blessed and so lucky.
You say that when you look in the mirror now, you don't see that same person, and I'd suggest at 23, yes, children weren't on your mind back then either. You were, on
Mm.
the steps of an enormous career, as you say, overseas. How would you describe yourself today? Who is Clare Stewart now?
That's a really good question. I was thinking about that before. I think first and foremost, I'm a daughter, I'm a wife, and I'm a mother. I'm also a survivor, and I think I would be the first disabled. And look, I'm a disabled person. I walk with a limp. I very luckily still have my legs, but I still walk with a limp, which is a product of the accident of having so many surgeries and so much damage done. So I think I'm the first disabled politician female in Queensland. I could be wrong on that, but it might be one. But at the end of the day, I'm a survivor, and that's probably how I'd best describe myself. But first and foremost, I am a daughter, a mother, and a wife at a
Mhm.
very foundational level.
How does a girl from the Gap in Brizzy end up being the mayor of Noosa? And I grew up in Brookfield, just over Gap Creek Road. I know exactly what sort of childhood that you would have had.
Oh, it
How
wasn't.
did
I
how did
I
you find
loved
yourself as the
Brookfield.
mayor of Noosa?
I know, and Brookfield I know well because my parents lived in Pullen Vale, so I know that area so well. All those western suburbs are terrific, great place to grow up in. Look, I'm not sure. I think it's funny. Life takes you in the most unexpected places, and
Mm.
grew up at the Gap. Only child. Mum was a teacher. Wasn't from a wealthy background, just a normal, middle class background. But my parents always had, especially my dad, that what are you going to do now, and where are you going, you got a university degree, you got a business degree, now do a law. Like, it wasn't a push, but
Mhm.
it was more a, come on, you can do this. And even so much so that when I was lying in hospital, he said, what are you going to do about your career? I think you should do a master of laws. And he encouraged me I was like, can I just learn how to walk again? So he
Yeah.
encouraged me, and I went on to do that. But I think having that support, and I always had really close, because I guess I'm an only child, very close girlfriends. So I've had the same best friend. I met her at first week at All Hallows. I went to All Hallows,
Mhm.
top of the year 8 building since we were 12, and all my closest friends have been my school and uni friends. So I've always had a very strong foundation, and I think I've had parents who have just said, a mum who had a heart attack when she was caring for me, and that was the impact that had had on her. She's
Mhm.
okay now with a number of stents in, but
Mhm.
always that stoic, be stoic. I think it's the Irish in us, fall 7 times, that great Japanese proverb, but stand up 8. So I
Mhm.
think whatever life has thrown at me, I think I've been ambitious, but there have been huge knocks. And for
Mhm.
me, I think what has seen me through is the ability to, get up, and keep going and moving forward. And I've moved, often I've moved backwards, so as we all have in life. You have your steps back and sideways, but I think you always end up in the place you're meant to be. And
Mhm.
so that's sort of, and I guess when I met my husband, we met at the opening of the Young Care charity event in
Right.
2007. And he's a Kiwi, but he was living in Noosa, and that was the agreement, that we would, if we got when we got married, that we'd live up here. So that was probably how I ended up here. But still very close ties to Brisbane, but Noosa is my home. It's a, and I'm so fortunate to call it home.
So politics was never really on the cards.
Look, I've always been interested, Shelley, but I think the accident, and the experiences I had, and when people didn't have to be nice and kind, but they chose to be, I
Mm.
think when you see that all of the support and love and care that you're the beneficiary of, when you come through the other side, you go, now it's my turn to give back. And
Mm.
that might sound trite and ridiculous, but it's true. At what level can I now be of some service? And that's probably where it came from.
Well, that support network that you had behind you, it was obviously the dad as the driver to keep your mind perhaps occupied, and as only dads know how, is to get you to focus on something that's perhaps completely irrelevant to what you're doing at the
Yeah.
time. But his was, yes, about still bettering yourself, still
Yeah.
thinking that you can have a wonderful career and an amazing education, and Claire, don't stop now.
Correct.
Whereas your mum's angle was to care for you, that nurturing aspect,
Yeah.
which obviously had a huge impact on her, and I'm sure on your dad as well. Were you very aware throughout that healing process, which was obviously years, how much you were drawing on others and how much your accident was affecting everyone around you and not just you?
Look, I think I was. But it's interesting. When I had my book published, a few of my best friends said to me, probably bar my best mate, but a few really, really close friends who I've been friends with forever, said, "We never realised the impact that this accident had on you because you kept it from us." I never burdened my friends. How are you? Great. And people would come into hospital and see me. I never said, I think I'm actually about to jump off a cliff. So I never really. That's why the book, it was, for me, it was very cathartic, because I never really told anyone how I thought or felt. Probably my mother, who was living with me at the time, she'd hear me crying, in the bedroom at night. She'd be in the room next door, and so there were, and as I said, probably my dad and probably a handful of people knew. Uh, but I presented. There's that great line: "Tearless grief bleeds inwardly." And that's what I talk about when I first looked at my legs. And I felt like that in many ways throughout certainly the early parts of the accident and the aftermath, that I never really said how I felt, or because I always thought, what's the point? What's the point in burdening someone? They're not going to make it better. So often the why me, if only, what if questions, and no one's ever going to give you the answers to those. No one's ever going to go, hey, you got hit
No,
by.
but you are entitled to ask,
Yeah,
you're absolutely
that's
entitled to
right.
ask them.
And I did and you do at times, and you think, and they're big questions, but they're questions a lot of people can ask, but I always thought, I'm not going to ever. And so those questions have faded as time's gone on, and the answers have become less important. But certainly for a period there, you do grapple with why me, and what's the bigger picture, and if only I hadn't have gone for a jog that morning, if only I had have stayed in bed, where would I be now? All those things you think about.
So we're talking about resilience. Obviously, having a life-changing experience like that, I think, makes you dig that much deeper all the time. Can you considered yourself a fairly resilient person pre-2000, or it never really crossed your mind what that even was? Had you had other moments in your life where you thought, "Gee, I've got to find an inner strength here," and obviously that was challenged again when you
Yeah.
had the accident?
Look, that's a great question, because I have one particular moment, and I played tennis as a junior for Queensland, and I was playing this particular year, and I always got put in the boys at the Gap. We were playing at the Gap, stayed high, and the bitumen courts at December, it's hot, school holidays, and they always put me in the boys tournaments for more competition. And I was playing against.
So you were good.
I was good at that time. I'm not good anymore, but yeah, I was at that time. And I remember rolling my ankle again playing when I was playing this boy. And at the time, Robin Vincenzi, who her maiden name was Eben, she won Wimbledon US with Margaret Court, and she was my coach. And she came up, and I was sitting under the tree. I'd rolled my ankle. We'd called time out, and she said, "What are you going to do, Claire? Are you going to continue the match?" And I've got the ice on the leg and the ankle, and God, I just want to go home. I just want to get out of here and have a cold shower.
Yeah.
And I didn't. I said, "Look, I'm not sure." And she said, "Look, what you do now," she said, "no one will think anything of it if you forfeit. You have every reason to. But if you get up and continue on, that is what will make all the difference." And I got up and I continued to play, and I lost. And I think, but the point was, I got up. And as an 11-year-old, you don't think, wow, that's a great life lesson. You don't think until years later you go, oh, I remember that. So I think I always had that resilience, but there were certain points in life that have highlighted that, or thought, oh, I can see that's put me in good stead for what was to come later on. So yeah, there have been points, and that was one of them.
And amazing to have that role model
Yeah.
for you back at that
Yeah.
age. You are now a remarkable woman who is influencing so many. But Who has influenced you the most? Obviously, Robin had a huge impact
Yeah,
at a point.
yeah. And look, I was lucky enough. I was speaking at All Hallows Morning Tea, a Mother's Morning Tea a few years ago, and her granddaughter was in the audience, and she came up to me and she goes, "That's my grandmother." It was so special because I told that story.
Oh, how
It was
special.
lovely.
Absolutely.
But look, for role models, I think I have male and female. I think my mother, obviously, that never say die, just get on with it. That she took after her, short Irish. I'm quite tall, but my mother took after her short Irish grandmother, and there's a lot of that stubbornness and determination in her. So probably that's and the being stoic. So I see her as a real role model. For her selflessness, I guess, and her care and love for family above all else, and certainly above herself. I have, as you do, I have a daughter. You've got two. But I see my daughter, I see her as you want to be the best person you can be for your children, so that you want them to have a mum they're proud of. So, and also I have two sons. So, but I think probably my role models, I probably call on those I know, family, friends and people who are close to me. And I often
Mhm.
take their advice and I think about their advice. So yeah, but I mean, there's some wonderful role models out there for women. We're so fortunate now. There's so many women who have,
Mm.
you know, forged the path that we now follow. But probably at a closer to home level, I'd definitely say my mum, my daughter, and probably my close friends who have really shown me the true
Mm.
meaning of friendship.
Isn't that beautiful? And to say you're not aspiring to some, great political whiz kid out there or someone, female from history. It is those people that rally around you, and they
Yeah,
really are the ones that you go, gee, I'm going to take more from
yeah.
that, from these people who are here with me today as our role
Yeah, that's
models.
right. Look, and look, I've met Oprah Winfrey. She's amazing. And I've met some really wonderful, amazing women. As I said, I think they're role models in so many ways too. But I think for to have that genuine, I guess for me, that genuine connection or relationship is people who I know well. And as I said, it's male
Mhm.
and female. My dad is the first person I call on for advice, or my husband. So in a way, I guess role model, confident, advisor, all those sort of things.
Yeah. We had an amazing conversation in season one with Shanna Kennedy, who is a life coach. And I think the biggest thing I took away from that chat was what would your 10-year older self say to you now?
Mm,
And I know we look on it too. What would I say to my younger self about how far I've come so far? But I loved the idea of my 10-year older self being my role model for now. Who do I want to be? What do I want to achieve? What do I want to become? How do I want my children to see
mm.
me in 10 years' time? And that really brought it home to me that you don't need to look outside. Often,
Yeah,
your best role model could be
yeah,
what you're aspiring for yourself in the future.
yeah, I think so. Because you're the only one on your path. You know, you're the only one
Mhm.
who's the master of your own destiny. So, so yeah, absolutely. You got to keep looking in that rearview mirror of where you've come from and look forward to where you're going. I believe in that too.
Mm. You seem very much driven by a sense of purpose. What does purpose mean to you?
I think purpose means, and this sounds again it really someone said to me, "What do you do every day?" My kids. I think I was speaking at the kids recently at one of their schools, and you love because kids are so honest, right? They ask you. One kid said to me, "What happens if the mayor dies?" and pointed a gun at me, like he was pointed his finger at me in like a gun position. I was like,
Oh,
"Mate, I don't know." Like,
I
who takes that? Like,
and I don't want
no, but
to
that's
think
right.
about it. Thank you very much. Yeah.
They're so honest in there, and I said every day, and I think I said this to my kids every day. I go to work to try and help someone. And that is the purpose of your job or my job. That if you can make someone's at a strategic level, at a high level, or even so much as, I ran into these gorgeous old ladies the other day who told me that when they go for their walk, the tables and chairs need cleaning. Like, even something as basic as that, it's right up to really big strategic, approvals, development approvals, all those things to,
Mhm.
the smaller things. If you can improve someone's life, improve their day, improve their amenity,
Mhm.
then then I feel like I've achieved. So the purpose of this job and this role, I feel, is very much about being of service. I don't think you go into politics, or you shouldn't go into politics. I don't believe, unless you actually want to make the world a better place. I mean, as if you genuinely want to help people and help small business, help the environment, help whatever you choose to do, or you see the gap. That's the purpose
Mhm.
of making that better.
I've got to say, Noosa is in very capable
Oh,
hands
thank you.
right now, and I know, as coming from a similar tourist town, the challenges that do face
Yeah.
you as the mayor of Noosa now, with, I guess, affordable housing and our climate crisis and tourism, etc. But this isn't a political chat. We can have coffee and talk that anytime. What are your biggest challenges
Uh,
right now?
I'll do two. Probably professionally, the biggest challenges we face. One of the biggest challenges we face is affordable. You just mentioned it, Shelley. Affordable housing. So it's not just about providing housing for our most vulnerable and at risk. It's also providing worker accommodation, because if our workers can't afford to live here, they won't
Mm-hmm.
work here. If they don't work here, our businesses don't have people, staff. They don't run. They don't open. The economy falls flat.
Mm-hmm.
We have 7,000 small businesses in the Noosa Shire. So you know, accommodation. But Noose is difficult because we can't go up and we can't go out in land where it's very
Mm-hmm.
finite. It's not like the sunny coast or somewhere else where you have that big spread. So we have to think more strategically, and we have to look to partner with, whether or not we have to housing providers with private developers, but we have to try and somehow fill that gap. But also we're also at risk then of, we're being loved to death. We have, which is a great problem to have, but because we have that small
Mm-hmm.
base of ratepayers and a smaller, they're funding the infrastructure and I guess the wear and tear that so many bring in. So that's, which is, as I said, it's absolutely brilliant to have tourism. It's our number one industry, and I support it wholeheartedly, and I stand behind Tourism Noosa, who do a brilliant job. But we just have to be mindful of how we can manage that. So we're looking at destination management, because we want everyone to have a great experience when they come here. So how can we ensure that if you come here, you have a great experience and you're not locked up in traffic, or you come away going, this is a great place. So destination management,
Mm-hmm.
affordable housing. There's a number of short-term accommodation is a big one. We've just enacted the first, I think we're the first government in Queensland to do a local law. It got huge amounts for all the wrong reasons of no clapping, no singing. I'm sure you saw it, but that actually wasn't what it was. It wasn't what it was about. It was about excessive noise. So we've had a lot of concerns,
Yes.
and about residential amenity. And our businesses. We've been on our knees for a couple of years. We are a tourist town. I think at the height of COVID, we lost 1,200 jobs on Hastings Street alone. So we just have to be mindful of, of really supporting hugely supportive of we've got a great business community, but being supportive of them. I think that's really important, because they drive the economy, they drive tourism. So they're our challenges, and on a larger scale. On a personal level, I would say, juggling. I've got a 10-year-old, a 9-year-old, and a 5-year-old, and doing that juggle. And I have a
Oh, they're three very big balls to keep in the
That's
air,
right.
aren't
And
they?
I'm always
Oh,
forgetting
goodness.
something. And I think as a mum, I think when women say you can have it all, I'm still waiting to see what that means, because I certainly know I can't. I feel that if I'm being a good mum, I'm failing at my job, or if I'm doing a good job, I'm not spending enough time with my kids. So I think there's that constant battle of, women are so hard on themselves, and
Yes.
I have a supportive husband, but when I say to him, what should I put in the kids' lunch boxes? The answer is not my department, so so
Don't look at
don't look
me.
at me. I don't know, carrots or watermelons.
Oh,
I don't
I
care.
didn't do the
Yeah,
groceries. What
exactly.
do you
So
got?
I think that a
Yes.
lot of that sort of stuff, irrespective of if you both work full time, it does. The care falls on the,
Mhm.
I've forgotten pajama day. I've
Mm.
missed, sports days, all these things, because it's you can't be everywhere at once. And so I think
No.
that for me is and learning to put down the phone when I get home. And I guess being present, with the kids.
Yes,
That's
and
still
they
a work in
know. Kids
progress.
know
Yeah.
that. They know if that's what you can offer as the phone isn't at the dinner table. You're doing your best, Claire, and I want you to cut yourself some slack for that. I do agree that having it all, where does that even come from? What does it even mean? And I'd like to think at the end of my lifetime, I could look back and say, yes, I had it all. Maybe
That's
not all
right.
at once, but I absolutely
Yeah.
had it all. A super quick pause in today's conversation. Our hope is that our sister platform, youmusttryit.com, becomes your home of aging well. It's a collection of our most loved products and a place just for us that we want to build together. Think low-tox skincare, makeup, perfume, supplements, gifts, and so much more. Please join our community by signing up at youmusttryit.com once you're finished listening to today's podcast. Now, back to our conversation.
I think that's right, and I think that's it. You can have it all, you just can't have it all at once, and or maybe you can. I'm not sure. Look, I'm really fortunate in that we have my parents moved to Noosa, so they live close by, so they help, and we have a significant amount of help because you have to, in this certainly. My husband travels quite a bit, so we need that support, and we're lucky that we have it. But it is a juggle, every day. So and as I said, I always feel that I'm failing at something. Yeah.
Well, it just makes you try harder, doesn't
That's
it?
right. Yeah. That's right.
What is next for you, Claire? What on earth could you actually have on your life to-do list?
I think I really love being in politics. I think that it's a great and but there are days when it's tough, as you know, and anyone who's I guess in a public domain, social media can be very cruel. It can be untrue. It can be. I had threats on my life last week and on my children's life from someone who was in the. I think I don't even know. I think no one I even knew, but I think they'd got a fine and they were upset, and so it can border on that, like pretty bad, where police need to step in, or it can be as just as nasty as untrue comments, or this is the mayor's fault, where I've had nothing to do with it, So uh, if you can take that away, and if you can, you put that in a compartment, the rest of the job I love, So I love being in politics, and I love being able to make that contribution and having that platform. It's an absolute privilege. So whatever the next step is, and we have our local council elections in 2 years, whether or not I choose to run again for mayor, which will be a big decision, or to potentially look to something else. But I'd always like to stay in politics, and in whatever way that means.
Yes, I'm sure you're not going to feel like your job is done in the next 2 years, so I can definitely see you stepping back up to the plate.
There's a lot to do.
There's a lot to do, and yes, that's right. Yeah. Look, if anyone is qualified to offer advice to our listeners, it's definitely you. So to the women listening who are perhaps going through a tough time right now, or have experienced a tough time in the not too distant past, what would you say to them? How do you get yourself back up every day, even when you're having a tough one?
I think it's that great quote, and I use it it's the last one of the last ones in my book, and it says, Robert Frost once said, "I can sum up everything I've learned about life in 3 words: it goes on." And I think that's really powerful, because no matter what happens to us, no matter the tragedy, no matter the the uplifting experience, the privilege, whatever it is, life still goes on. And I think that's what I've learned, that this inordinate thing happened to me, and don't be defined by it. So if I'd say to women is, yes, if you're going through a tough time, that is, it is personal. It is incredibly difficult for you, but just keep getting up in the mornings, keep powering on, because my mother always said to me, Claire, I promise you things will get better. And they did. In fact, they became great. But that's the message in life, is just to, it will be days literally where they are 2 steps forward and 1 step back. But the important thing is we just keep moving forward, and to keep getting up, and to don't let that, whatever it is, whether it's a divorce, a death, a job loss, a boyfriend loss, don't let that define you. And that's what I think is really important is, I've done so many things badly in my life. The one thing I haven't done is I haven't let the accident define me. I couldn't control it. But I could control my mind and my heart, and where I went from it afterwards. Couldn't control the fact that I'd been hit, but I could control the outcome. And I think that's the message to women is, don't be defined by your adversity, and keep moving forward.
You are an extraordinary woman, Clare
Thank
Stewart.
you.
Thank you very, very much for your time.
Thank you, Shelley. Thank you for having me. It's been a privilege. Thank you.
I enjoyed every minute of today's conversation. What a true inspiration, an amazing woman. Claire is the type of person that makes you want to be better. She said, "Now it's my turn to give back," and indeed she is. I loved her quote, "I think you always end up in the place you're meant to be." So for those dealing with life's challenges, I hope today's episode helps in some way. Please share Claire's story with someone who needs a lift or motivation to keep going. And for those looking to learn more about Claire, her book is titled Standing on My Own 2 Feet, and her Instagram handle is, appropriately, Noosa Mayor. Thanks for listening, and we look forward to sharing another story next week. I'm your host, Shelley Craft, and as always, this is the Ageing Project podcast.